we'll go live here for only about 20 minutes, because I want to have a few minutes to get ready for the official.
Okay.
All right, all right. We are live again. Sorry to you guys that were watching before. A little technical difficulty. Good thing I did this pre-show, Coach JD Atkins, because I would have made that mistake in the webinar coming at 10. So don't let me forget to make sure that you assign the host back to me before you leave. Everybody, this is JD Atkins of Opelika, Alabama. Had you on for the mic'd up practice. Coach, did you get a chance to watch that mic'd up practice?
I got a little bit of it as I was coming in and setting up, but not much.
Oh, so you haven't even watched your whole mic'd up?
No, I've only seen a little bit of it.
Yeah, you're busy coaching ball, man. How did you guys' season end up?
Well, we wrapped up a couple weeks ago. We were in the quarterfinals, the 7A playoffs. We went up to Hoover, Alabama, and played Hoover. Got down 16-0 to start the game. Kind of rallied back, ended up taking the lead. They tied it up right before the game ended to send it to overtime. We ended up going to 3 overtimes and
Oh my
losing in the third
gosh.
overtime. And then they would go on to the semifinals, and we would go home.
What a heartbreaking way to lose. But man, when you're in the thick of those games, did you ever can you remember any moment where you're like, this is madness? And I mean, it's amazing. It's
Yeah,
an amazing feeling. Like if you could bottle that feeling, you'd be the richest man in America,
no doubt.
because it's a rush. Was there a moment in there at all where you were aware of how wild this moment is?
I think maybe once or twice in overtime, but you get so focused on like your task that you really like don't even allow yourself to take in the environment. I think pregame maybe was probably the biggest of like seeing, just where we had come and they play their games at the Hoover Met, which is like a minor league baseball stadium. So it's a really cool environment and a really like very different for high school football, very big, and it was just a really cool feeling. And then after the game, again, you kind of allow yourself to step back out of it and back into the emotions of it. And yeah, no, you're right though. You if you could bottle that up and sell it, I think a lot of people would buy it.
Oh man, I tell you what, it's one of the reasons why athletes and coaches, once you get out, it's hard to get excited about much, because you have felt this feeling that can't be replicated. You know, it's another thing that I don't think, well, I know that people, whether it's my wife or the common fan that has never coached, don't realize how difficult it is. You have to make a play call within about 10 seconds. You have about 10 seconds to take in what's the down and distance, because based on that last play, what didn't work on that last play, what has been working, and what's going to work now in the most tense situation of the year. The stakes are so high. We've
Yeah,
worked for 6 months at this, and when I say worked for 6 months, like tirelessly, day in, day out, and I have to make a decision right now in 10 seconds that could make or break us.
yeah. No, it's when you put it that way, yeah, it's pretty wild. I actually had this talk yesterday with somebody. I don't think there's a better feeling or a more like electric feeling than about that moment about 3 minutes before kickoff. Captains are walking out, bands are playing. You kind of smell it. You smell the grills fired up, people walking in everywhere. It's just an electricity. And then you kind of, coin toss happens, you snap out of it, you go into coach mode, and you kind of forget about all of it. But that moment right there, you kind of allow yourself to have it. That's the best feeling. Like that's what we chase, I think. And then
Yes.
like you said, just the chaos of a football game. I think it all goes back to like your preparation and your staff and the help that you have around you and the work they've put in through the week to be prepared for that moment. Because like you said, you got 10 seconds to make the next call and everything rides on it.
Yeah.
Have you done your
And no
work to lead up
takebacks.
to that moment? Yeah, there's no takebacks. There's like
No takebacks.
you don't get a redo. There's no like pull the cord out and start over again. Like it is what it is, and it goes back to the people you have around you and how good they are and the work that you've put in and the prep you've done. And if your work is right, then you're ready for that moment. And it's not that hard. And if it's not, then you're searching. And if you're ever in that mode where you're searching, that's a really bad feeling to have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Coach, this morning we're in our our pre-show right now. We're doing our December webinar. I'm trying to make sure that I'm serving our members here on YouTube, and so wanted to put together a webinar, and I couldn't think of anything better to start with than Pass Pro. I was talking to Ian Tatum earlier this morning in our first live, and just letting them know. I mean, if I'm going to talk Pass Pro, I need to talk as little as possible. I'm not. I'm a wing T guy, a three-back guy, and the reality is, the better we run the football, the less we have to worry about Pass Pro.
Amen.
Number one, because we're not going to throw it much, but number two, because our best pass protection is our run fakes.
Yeah.
So I'm in a totally different world. I've got to get guys in here that throw the ball and have to worry about this. So we're gonna, at 10 o'clock, you're gonna kind of give a true presentation, and you're kicking off our Pass Pro webinar, talking scheme this morning at 10. But right now we're just kind of hanging out talking Pass Pro. Tell the guys, like, how many do you guys carry, and which one are you starting with? Let's say, like, with the freshmen.
Yeah. So, well, what's funny is, in the past, we've been the team that has thrown it around, and we've done some things like that. And then coming here this year, our personnel changed a little bit, and we became a little more run heavy, and didn't throw it as much, and morphed into some different things. So, I've been blessed or unfortunate, however you want to look at it, to have been in a lot of different ways and throw it a bunch and not throw it a bunch and been around a little bit. But this year, and in the most recent years, Pass Pro wise, we've probably carried 5 or 6 schemes, but a lot of it like lays over each other or ties into each other, so that it's really not a lot of new teaching. There may be 1 or 2 adjustments here or there. You asked where we start. We generally start with like your traditional half man, half slide, whether that be from a 6-man or a 5-man look. But we start there, and we tend to use that the most, whether it's with quick game or your more intermediate drop back game. We'll use that for both of those. And then also you can wrinkle in some like simpler play action looks off of that as well, where it's not like true play action protection, but you're getting like a flash fake to get your back across to number 3. Those are some things we'll start with. On top of that, we'll carry like everyone does. We'll carry like a full slide adjustment if we're getting a bunch of junk or games, to be able to handle some of that. And then we've got some calls within those to be able to like super push a slide or adjust a man side if we're getting a funky look up front or something more game plan specific, which I think Coach Fleming may get into some of that later, which is really good stuff. And then we'll carry like a true man sift protection, specifically for odd fronts.
Dude, tell us what that is. The SIF. That's a term I have not heard.
Well, I mean, you hear some people. I call it man sieve because of kind of the details we get into later. A lot of people will refer to it as like your old school, like bob protection, or more of a man scheme, where like you trust your center on the nose, and then from there you're doing some count work and some call work to ID what you're going to pick up around it, and where the push goes and that kind of stuff. And I'll get into that when we talk scheme a little bit. But really, at the root of it, it's bob protection with some adjustments built in to ID and handle the most dangerous threats and get you where you need to be. And like I said, we use that against odd front teams when we feel really comfortable with our center, or we feel really good about having a beat on what games you're going to play and some things like that. If we're not comfortable with it for whatever reason, we can go back to a half man, half slide, or even to a full slide if we need to. And then on top of that, we'll usually carry some version of sprint protection, whether that's like a reach and run with a waterfall, or whether that's a full turn back and we pin C gap with either a fullback or a tailback. And then we'll carry a couple play action looks. So nakeds and boots. Obviously that's pretty simple to put in off of your run action stuff. And then some true like counter pro, where we're pulling a guard and doing some things that way as well.
Man, so and football coaches are famous for this. Like, we always say it like, well, we just do one or two of these and a couple of that, a couple, and it sounds, and it does become simple to us,
Yeah,
right? Because we live in this world and we're there all the
no
time, and
doubt.
yeah, just a couple. But a couple plus a couple plus a couple plus a couple turns out to be a lot. Um, so when you talk, so a couple things within that that I could break down. We won't get into all of them, but one thing one question I had is, so you said, we might transition into some full slide if they're playing some games. We might super push one side. So that you had a lot of things within there. Tell me, does your half slide, half man, your man stiff that you called it, your big on big, or your full slide, do all three of those pass pros carry different terms, or do you have a term for pass pro and then within a game, when the offensive line comes off and they're on the bench together and you got the whiteboard with them, you say, hey, we're going to transition now into this pass pro because we're seeing X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've done it a couple different ways, but most recently, the way we're doing it now is, our half man, half slide is one term, for our two terms directionally. And then our full slide is another term or another two terms directionally. And then we used to carry the man sift protection as a term, to where I could control it. Recently, we've gotten away from that, and that's become kind of a tool we've given to our center or our quarterback, depending on the year and who we feel most comfortable with calling it. But we've gone, pretty heavy into allowing, whoever that caller is for us. This year it was our center, but before we've used our quarterback. Whereas they're able to adjust some protections. So, for example, like we call half man, half slide. There was true drop back concept, whatever, and they come out in an odd look. Our center or quarterback, whoever's the caller, would ID that that's the odd front look that we want, and they would check us into that man sift protection. So I don't do that. I'm not a part of that, other than just the prepping them for that. And like I said, we've had quarterbacks do that in the past. Our center was kind of responsible for that this year. And usually that's like, there's a few like overarching looks we will always like do, but usually it's a game plan deal. It's like, hey, this week, when they give us this front, we know this is probably what we're going to get. This is what we want to check to. And we give him that freedom. But that's not really a heavy burden on our center because of how many calls he's making already and what he's doing already in the run game. There's really not a play. There's really not much of an opportunity where he doesn't do much. Like he's talking on pretty much every play, whether that's IDing a front or pushing a zone or, who's pulling, who's not pulling, or, where the combo work is. And then in pass pro, how are we setting this? Which direction are we pushing? Or is this a man sift opportunity for us? And then, like I said, you get into the world where defenses they're getting crazy and they're doing some different things and they're like heavy overloading sides. And you've got to have the ability to now basically add another gap in your pass pro scheme. And so we saw some looks this year where, we want to set the slide there, but setting the slide there is really not enough. We need to kind of push the slide another gap. And so added some calls for him that way to be able to really push our slide heavy to compensate, and then use a back or a full back or something to help back in that isolation on your weak side tackle, because that's the deal, right? They want to overload a side, make you push everything to it, and then isolate their dude on a tackle with a ton of space. And so being able to identify those things, but then also push your guys in the right position to where you're not screwed on an island somewhere.
Man, I get a lot of, I've noticed in the last year that I have a lot of coaches that are coaching really for the first time or taking on a youth program and hadn't coached before. And I want to encourage anybody that happens to watch this anytime over the next year, 2 years, hey, find yourself somebody that is a good resource for you, right? So when it comes to O-line play, like you can't just take it all on. You're not going to know everything, man. Find a good O-line guy. Ask him real questions, real scheme questions, real footwork questions, real questions like how much is too much? Like you got to know, like at what point are we getting diminishing returns because we're installing too much? So I talk to people, and I want to encourage anybody watching this, keep asking questions, keep finding guys. The guys that are guests on these things are great to reach out to. So with that being said, Coach, like, who's your resource
Yeah,
when you start thinking, oh gosh, we haven't seen that, what am I going to do here?
yeah.
Who's your resource for learning?
Man, that's a really good question. I've been blessed now, over my 12 to 13 years of doing this to have established some relationships across our state and even outside of state lines now. And so, I've got a group of buddies that are O-line minded or played O-line or coach O-line or did coach O-line, now they're OCs or head coaches. But they're kind of the guys that I turn to. Some of them have done some of these things with us before, like David Lumberg's one of them, up at Vestavia. If I have a question, I'm turning to that guy. He is a absolute genius, and so lean on him a lot. One of my best buddies in this profession, Kel Pridgeon. He's the O-line coach down at Huntington College in Montgomery. Lean on him whenever I need to go somewhere or have a question about how they're blocking something or whatever. And there's several others. I don't want to go rattle off names or whatever, but there's the one thing I say is, like, this day and age, there is no limit on what you can find resource wise, like with Twitter or what X or whatever it's called now, and then what you guys are doing with Chief Pigskin, and like there is content oozing out of the walls all around you. You just literally have to be willing to open your phone and type it in, and you'll find it. I've learned so much from Twitter and from content like you guys put out and YouTube and it's everywhere. But it's like you said, there's so much good out there and there's so much ideas out there. It's too much, and so you can't just do everything you see because now you have no identity. It's just a grab bag. But B, you're going to overload your kids. You're going to overload yourself. You're going to overload your coaches, and so being able to have some confidants and some people that you can reach out to and say, kind of like you said, how much is too much, and does this fit who we are? And so being able to whittle through that stuff. But man, there are resources everywhere. There is no excuse for not being able to learn or ask a question. And then selfishly, that's just why we started some of the things that we do through AL Football Chat. Like the Twitter chat. That started out of, we want to talk ball and learn during COVID. That's how that started. And it's kind of morphed into what it is now. And then, we've got our summer clinic and all those things. But at the root of all those things, we want to grow coaches and we want to grow the state of Alabama football. And we want to grow all those things. But really, like, the behind it all was just, we want to learn ball and be around good coaches. And so that's the one thing I've learned more than anything. And I hope every state is like this. But at least in Alabama, 99.9% of your coaches are willing to share anything. Like you hear people say this is a secret, and I don't want to talk, and I don't want to share our secrets and ruin what we do. But really, at the root of it, 99.9% of coaches in the state are an open book, and they just want to see the game get better. They want to see our kids have the best resources, the best scheme, the best whatever, and they want to help set it up for the future. And that's what I've learned more than anything throughout this with our guys. But yeah, tons of resources out there. All you got to be willing to do is open your phone.
Amen to that, man. And that's the other truth is that it's really an honor to be asked to share what you know, what you do. We work so hard on it. When somebody asks you, it's really an honor. It's why, so I encourage people to reach out. Guys are usually honored to get asked their opinion because, as Alexander Hamilton said, we are all prideful. Men are prideful.
No doubt. And
a lot of us want to be the person that has the next best great idea. But I've found, and I really am a believer, that you will find success quicker if you emulate someone else before you try to innovate yourself. So find someone to emulate. What do? I'm going to steal it 100% as I get going. And then once you've been in it a couple years and you've been doing this, little innovations might present themselves and you might come up with something brilliant. But if you look for something brilliant first, you're going to lose a lot of football games searching that way.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're going to sign off here, Coach, and get ready for our official Pass Pro webinar. You're kicking us off at 10 a.m. And all of you guys, be sure to leave us a thumbs up, subscribe to Chief Pigskin. If you want to see the Pass Pro, all you got to do is click that join button below. All membership levels can view it live. Touchdown and above can view it, view the recording of it. So that'll be up there for all time, for as far as I know, till YouTube ends. But Coach, thanks for joining us. I look forward to hearing from you at 10.
Yes, sir. Thank you.